All right, so the pressure is on right now within the crypto markets. We're seeing some legislative fronts jumping into the mix, but we're also looking at a variety of things that are very unique that are happening at a very interesting time. And I wanted to break it all down for you guys because this could lean in a lot to what's happening with the ETF, but also into a very politically charged 2024. We'll break it down for you. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Joining me today is Mr. Mark Yusko, coming in from Morgan Creek Capital. Great to have you back.
Hey, great to be with you, Paul. And exciting end to the year, it looks like. So,
oh man,
never a dull
this one's
moment.
Going to go out. Yeah, this one's going out like a lion for sure. So let's talk about a couple of topics. Obviously, we'll jump into the CPI. Some of the results here was Kobeisi kind of talking about this falling down to 3.1 in line with the expectations so far. And if you think about this, I mean, CPI has been slowly trending down. So I think when you look at Chair Powell, this is kind of I feel like a nothing burger, but what's your opinion? Do you feel like he's still going to kind of hold his position right now?
I mean, it's a total nothing burger, and it's been much ado about nothing for the past 2 years. You know, there never was any inflation. Everybody says, "No, what are you talking about? You know, inflation was 8%." No, it wasn't. I mean, inflation is when there's excess demand, limited supply, prices rise.
Right.
What we had was currency devaluation. So post lockdowns in 2020, they doubled the money supply over 18 months. Think about that. 244 years as a republic, $10 trillion. 2 years, $10 trillion. Crazy. I mean, literally crazy, off the charts, cult of Kelton. And everyone's shocked. I mean, shocked, I tell you, Paul, that their house went up or oil prices went up or used car prices went up. No, none of those things got better. None of them increased in demand. The demand actually went down because we were all locked in our homes and apartments. It was the money got worse. And so now the money supply is contracting. And shockingly, it's the first time it's contracted in over 100 years. U.S. money supply has grown at 7.5% on average every year for about 110 years. We finally just contracted it. And shockingly, prices are, quote unquote, rising less fast. They're actually not falling, right?
Yeah.
They're rising less fast. I love how the president says something like, you know, we've eliminated inflation. No, we got back to a level that's only 50% higher than the stated rate at 3% instead of 2%. But it's all dumb, right? I mean, that's a technical term, dumb. It's a stealth wealth tax. It's been going on since 1913. The goal is to steal from the poor and give to the rich. And they're really good at it. In fact, we have the highest and worst wealth and income inequality in the history of the country. And it's because of the creation of the Fed and the ability of a non-government. Remember, the Federal Reserve is not federal, nor does it have any reserves. It's not a bank.
Right.
It is a group of bankers that own a private corporation that controls the price of money. And price controls are bad. They've never been good. Rent controls are bad. Minimum wage is bad. Every price control is bad. The market should decide prices. And they've been controlling the price of money so that they can steal from the people who don't own things and give it to the people at the top of the pyramid who do.
You know, and I think
anyway, long answer to your question.
No, it's a good answer because I think it does. What I'm always amazed by is how efficient this government has been in being able to kind of get this facade out there with most people. And I think that still is one of the reasons that we see so much pushback on crypto is like, you know, the curtain has been drawn by people who really understand sovereign wealth and understand how to manage what they think will be the future of finance. So I think it hits right on the head with you.
Fiat is the primary tool for the kleptocrats, right? The people at the top, the few, to steal from the rest of us, right? If I can take a currency and I can devalue it in front of your eyes by printing more of it out of thin air, then I get richer. Now, if you take that away from me, because Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, not an inflationary currency, it actually goes up in value as the currency it's priced in goes down. Because let's remember, one Bitcoin, 21 million in the history of the world, probably less than that because some are lost or stolen. So 21 million, let's call it 18 million units. One Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin. But it's not priced in Bitcoin. It's priced in dollars or yen or euros. And when we price in those currencies, we find that it is a perfect store of value, similar to gold. And that's the reason that the feds don't like it. The government doesn't like it. Ms. Warren doesn't like it. They are afraid of it. They're absolutely terrified that this perfect money takes away their, they believe, God-given right? It says in God we trust on the back of the currency. But it's kind of wild and kind of crazy. And if you just stop for a second and think about it, and think about why do we let this small group of people control the price of money, we'd probably rebel. But we don't, because we're comfortable. We have pretty good high quality of life. The water runs, the heat works for most of us. Now, there are a whole bunch of people who are very uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. But on average, the average person has a pretty good life. And so they don't feel the slow, stealth wealth tax that is inflation, because it's only 2% a year. What's that? Well, that takes half your purchasing power over a 30-year period. That's not good for you. Never been good.
No, not at all. I think, Clemente hits it right on the head. Bitcoin doubling in 2 months, no pullbacks. Corrections are not necessarily surprising under the kind of the situation right now, but it's volatility, more of a feature, not a bug. I would agree with that, and I think a lot of people also looked at the leverage was already starting to move into the market. And also remember, we got a lot of liquidity starting to move in the market as well. And you and I have talked about this before. The amount of money on the sidelines right now, if you look at that in comparison to, say, pre-last cycle, I mean, what is your opinion of how that impact is really going to move in, especially in 2024 and 25, around whether it's digital assets, Bitcoin, and many others? Where do you think those assets are going to find their way?
Well, I mean, look, we're talking about opening up about 30 trillion, okay, round numbers, 30 trillion with a T. And, trillion is just a number that it rolls off the tongue, but no one really understands it. And I would
how
say
big it is.
To really understand it, you and I would have to sit here on air for 31,710 years and spend $1 every second. That's 1 trillion. So 30 of those units are going to be opened up on, I believe, January 8th next year when they crown the king on the king's birthday. That's my little thing. On Elvis's birthday, they will crown BlackRock.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So I think that happens on that Monday. And when that happens, that $30 trillion now at UBS and Merrill Lynch and all these places that prohibit you from, use it. Here's the crazy thing. We live in this permissioned world, and yet we all tolerate it, right? We put our money in the bank. It's now the bank's money, and we can use it if they give us permission. And yes, they give us permission most of the time, but sometimes they don't, right? Imagine waking up in, the island in Europe, back in 2013, 14, where they took in Cyprus, where they took 3/4 of your money, right? Because they lent money to a bunch of Russian oligarchs and it got confiscated. So
Lebanon.
Your money's gone.
Yep.
Or how about La Jolla Savings Bank? You put your money in, thought it was safe, and it's gone. So one of the things about permissioned worlds is they like that control. And what they really like, Paul, is they extract $7 trillion every year globally, from us in the form of account fees, accounting fees, audit fees, transaction fees. If I want to send you money, I have to have a bank account. You have to have a bank account. They charge me a wire fee. if I want to send you a Bitcoin, I punch a couple buttons and it's yours. So that frightens them to death because their monopoly on friction. So governments have a monopoly on violence. Banks have a monopoly on friction. And that's the first time I ever said that. I like that. And that monopoly is about to vanish.
Yeah.
And that terrifies them. And I think once we get the sense that, well, wait a minute, I don't have to live in a permissioned world. I mean, I tell a story all the time that, the first time I tried to transfer money from my Bank of America account to Coinbase to buy some assets. And we were early investors in Coinbase. And so I still use them. People say, not your keys, not your coins. I'm like, yeah, I know. But I use Coinbase because I like the business. And so long story short, Bank of America said, yep, 14 days. Like, what do you mean 14 days? I said, well, didn't you read the fine print? Didn't you read? Of course I didn't read the fine print, you morons. Now, I don't bank at Bank of America anymore because that's BS. Now, I know the current bank I'm with could do the same thing, but they haven't yet. Yeah. And in that world, ultimately, billions of people will use digital assets. And I say this all the time, and I'll use the prop. So my granddaughter's 1 year old. She's a Zoomer, a Gen A. She will never have one of these. She will never have a leather wallet. She will never use paper money. She will never know what paper money is. She'll be totally comfortable in the digital world. And that is a world that doesn't exist right this second. But in 20 years, when she's an adult, that's the way the world will work. And I think because of that, this cycle and the approval of the ETF and the liberation of all those assets that are permissioned and excluding owning things like GBTC or MicroStrategy or BITO or whatever it is,
right,
suddenly are going to find that their clients want it. Now, they're not going to put all their money in, but just 1% of 30 trillion is huge. $300 billion. $300 billion of demand for spot Bitcoin will drive the price meaningfully higher.
Yeah, for sure. Higher. Mark, what do you make of the situation with, Senator Warren, this recent release? This was coming over from Ryan Adams. They've been unmasked. Elizabeth Warren wants a totalitarian financial surveillance state. Basically, she's proposing with Senator Marshall, where it would make it illegal for citizens to run an ETH validator and a DeFi front end overall. So essentially, we're talking about a full control totalitarian state on digital assets, digital money, outside of what we know as the real fiat system. And I understand this is a big reach for government in general. I think there would be so much pushback. But the fact that this was even laid out there is pretty brash. What is your opinion?
Yeah, but no different, Paul, actually, than, I don't remember the exact year. I think it was 96 or 97. I'll have to go back and brush up. When Al Gore saved the internet, right? Al Gore did not invent the internet, as he is, jokingly referred. Right. That's not what he did. He did save it. There was a bill, and I don't remember if it was a Warren bill or not, because she's been there like 100 years. But there was a bill, and it was sponsored by, AT&T and Verizon. When I say sponsored, meaning lobbying, meaning bribed. Yeah. Just pure bribery. So this bill that she's sponsoring is paid for by the banks, just like all of her money comes from the banks. Right? She's bought and paid for. Here's the crazy thing. In America, it cost $100 million to become a senator. How many people have $100 million to spend? I mean, Meg Whitman tried, and even she didn't win, but she at least had the money. Most people don't have that money. I would say, of all the people in the Senate, none of them spent their own $100 million. So where'd they get it? They got it from companies. Well, if someone gives you $100 million or 10 or 15 or 20, what do they expect? They expect something. And so this bill tried to make what you and I are doing right now, voice over internet protocol, for free, right? You and I are communicating over the internet for free. They tried to make it illegal. Literally, it tried to make it illegal.
Yep. I remember
and it didn't pass, and Al Gore, I guess, cast the vote that made it didn't pass. And the same thing's going to happen here. Now, the only thing that makes me smile about Ms. Warren, the only thing, is she's over, right? She sponsored 300 and some odd bills in her career. Zero.
Can't get them across the line. Yeah.
I mean, zero. I mean, come on, zero?
That's a bad ratio.
Amazing. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. And how a person like that gets reelected, well, we know how, right? She's bought and paid for. But the fact that she can't get anything through is a travesty to our system, because
she makes why would
you want
an
ineffective person?
Yeah, a lot of noise. Right? Definitely a lot of headlines, for sure. When you think about that.
Well, and what it really does, right?
Your position is that this is not a big deal. You feel pretty confident this is not going to be a big deal?
I think it is a big deal. I think it's a big deal, but I don't think it'll pass. One of my favorite lines about ideas is you can judge the quality of an idea by the quality and the power of its detractors. Right? If I have an idea and no one I respect or admire is afraid of it, that's probably not a very good idea. Yeah. If I have an idea and people I admire and respect are afraid of it, then it's probably a pretty good idea.
Yeah. I love that too. And I was looking at your quote here. So when your livelihood depends on it, for some of our audio listeners, and not understanding something, you won't. And Jamie understands, is a very smart person. Yeah. So this technology, blockchain, will do to financial services what the internet did to media and commerce. And I agree with you 100%. I've seen multiple cycles in tech, have been in it for almost 3 decades now, it feels like. But I've seen it all in the essence of these rise of power. But to your point, we are entering a phase right now that we've really never seen in technology before, because we're messing with the money. Speaking of that, I'm looking at this article right here. Rostin Benham, obviously the CFTC chair, is saying basically crypto industry here to stay. I mean, this is a good sign in the sense that we've got Benham at least saying, okay, yeah, it's here to stay because I want to regulate it, really, is what it boils down to. And that most things are not securities. So that's been their position, obviously on the commodities sector for quite some time. Do you feel, Mark, let's give it a percentage of who wins this over the next few years, whether it's the SEC or the CFTC, in terms of regulation, because we are going to see it happen. We're going to see regulation of some sort come through. And at some point, we are going to have a government entity out there that's going to be somewhat managing and organizing what's happening in the digital asset space. Where do you think it's going to fall?
Look, I mean, I think the answer is yes, right? Because there are different use cases for different blockchains. Mm-hmm. So let's just start at the beginning. So Bitcoin is a blockchain. I know Bitcoiners don't like that, but it is. It's a blockchain. But the Bitcoin blockchain is both big B, the token, the asset, and little b, the network. The network, I think, is the most valuable network in the world. It's the most powerful computing system the world has ever seen. I think ultimately becomes the settlement layer for all things of great value. And the more valuable an asset, the more you want it on a really strong proof of work blockchain. But that asset, Bitcoin itself, big B Bitcoin, clearly a commodity. It is digital gold. Gold is a commodity. But gold is interesting. It's the only asset in the world that is both a commodity and money. Money is an asset that exists in the absence of a liability. Everything else is currency, which is backed by debt. Yep. Bitcoin is the digital form of gold. It is both a commodity, okay, big B that can be traded, and money exists in the absence of a liability. Now, all the other things like Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche are more toolkits. Most of the tokens that got created don't do anything, right? They're utility tokens. They're either a meme, which has no value whatsoever except a Ponzi. I mean, it's literally a Ponzi. Or it's there as a trading sardine because people think they own a piece. Like, I love Uniswap. Great DEX. They do lots of volume. But the Uni token doesn't give me a share of their revenues. If I owned a share of their revenues, well, that's a security. And then that needs to be regulated by securities regulators.
Yeah.
But it's a digital security or a digital token. And ultimately, every asset, every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of land, every private piece of art, every private business, all $700 trillion of assets in the world will eventually be tokens. They will be line items on ledgers, digital property rights. That's all a token is. It's a digital property right. We call them NFTs because that is a appropriate term. They are non-fungible, unique tokens. I hate that term because people think monkey JPEGs. And it can be a monkey JPEG, or it can be any other JPEG, or it can be a beautiful piece of generative art, or it could be your claim on your identity, or it could be your driver's license or your marriage license or a piece of stock, or it could be ownership of a business in the form of a digital security that trades on a digital exchange. And ultimately, we had analog way back when. Everything was analog. You and I want to trade, we had to be physically proximate. I had to have a physical piece of paper. You had a physical piece of paper, a stock certificate, money, whatever, and we traded. Now we don't have to be physically proximate.
Yeah, for sure. I think his statement here, Congress needs to step in and play a decisive role in legitimizing and integrating cryptocurrency into existing financial system. I mean, how likely, I've been very pro regulation in the sense that I feel like this is going to happen. It's just a matter of the right timing and the right politicians in play, and also the right supporters, because that is the other factor that will eventually, now that we've got BlackRock playing into this, and among many other major institutions, what would you give this on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being 100%? Of us
Look, we're going to have regulation. Regulation is necessary. Look, it's like raising kids. If you don't give them rules, they flounder. They don't know what to do. They don't know when to go to bed. They don't know what not to do, what to do. Rules are good. Now, rules are made to be broken, so to speak, and they can change and they can modify and they can be pushed. But there are certain things that are black and white. There are lines.
Yeah.
I always say it's tax avoidance and tax evasion. Now, income tax probably shouldn't exist. They're supposed to be temporary after the Spanish-American War, but there are rules. And I would take every step up to the line to avoid paying more than I should. But I will never step across the line to evasion, because then threat of violence, I go to jail. Now, I would like a system that's better than the current system, where the IRS says, you owe me money. Okay, how much? Guess. I don't know, 25,000? Yeah. Wrong, jail. I mean, that's just a dumb system. If you know how much I owe, just tell me and I'll pay it. But we have this game and this dance. Why? Because we employ 800,000 people and thousands of pages of regulation and people getting paid. So the same thing's going to happen here. Regulation is going to happen. Is it going to be the draconian kind of, it's all illegal, and are we going to have another Executive Order 6102? Look, on April 5th of 1933, the government decided to make gold illegal. Why did they make gold illegal? Why is the Wizard of Oz a political commentary on gold, right? It really is, believe it or not. Okay, why? Well, because gold is money. And gold was showing the world how weak the dollar was.
Right.
And so they said, no, we're in charge. We're in charge. So you as a citizen can no longer own gold. You're a criminal. Now, did everybody give back their gold? Nope. Did some people? Sure.
Last question to you, and this is kind of the current situation right now. Obviously, we've seen a pullback a little bit, but still people are looking at kind of a sign for bulls here. And a couple of points I want to kind of draw in on this, about almost 7% more USDT on exchanges now compared to the data we've seen 6 months ago. So that gets back to my point earlier. A lot of possible fiat moving into digital capacity to be prepared for what could be coming right now in terms of a bull run. And per this report, 25.8% of the total supply of USDT is now held on cryptocurrency exchanges. Also another position where people are coiling up here. What do you think is the indicator? Do you still feel it's the ETF that's going to kind of set this party off, or do you feel there's other indicators coming in from the Fed?
If the ETF were to never happen, We're still, we're still halfway through crypto summer. The halving's still going to occur. The fair value of Bitcoin is going to double, right? Because if your block rewards go down, the price has to rise or else all your miners go out of business. That's what we've seen time and time again. All that's going to happen. Crypto fall starts next June. Crypto fall is the period following the halving. That's the parabolic move. And fair value today is in the low 50s. We're in the low 40s, so we're almost there. I've been saying all year that we were headed toward fair value right before the halving, and then the halving will occur. We'll have a rapid move to the new fair value. That will trigger FOMO. Lots of people will come in. We'll shoot right through fair value, probably into the mid 100s, maybe 150. And, then we'll see how it goes. That's without the ETF. Yeah. That's just the normal cycle. With the ETF, I mean, all bets are off because it is real demand for spot Bitcoin.
Right.
And here's the thing. Bitcoin trades about $8 billion US dollar equivalent a day. Okay. But it's not 8 billion unique. A lot of that is just the same stuff traded over and over. Right. There's only about 25-ish% of the 800 billion of market cap. So that's 200 billion that's available to trade. The rest is either lost, stolen, locked up, multi-sigged, hodlers. I'll never sell at any price, although there's a price. But call it 75% of it not interested in trading. So that leaves about 200 billion to trade. And if we get 10 basis points in that first week, that's 30 billion. That'll move the price. Deal. If we get the full 1% pretty quickly, which I actually think we will, that'll move the price a lot. So how high can we go this cycle? I don't know. Fair value, 100K by mid next year. Can we shoot to 150, 180? Easy. Max Kaiser is saying it's going to be 200, 220. Certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Will we have another crash? Sure. Because people will get too ebullient. I think there's less leverage this time, Paul. So I don't think, if you go back to the last cycle, fair value was 31. We got to 69. Okay. About 2 point something times fair value. I don't think we'll go to 2 point something this time. I think more like 1.5, 1.7, 1.8 seems more likely to me. But I don't know. I mean, that's just the math that I do.
Yeah, well, looking at the the capacity of where the market cycles are going, and I think the situations right now in terms of just what can impress its will upon the market, whether it is ETFs, but even more so as ETFs roll in, we're going to see this massive explosion of new advertising dollars. Google just recently said, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna approve this now," and with Google kind of coming into that. The fact that they were going into this direction, I mean, it kind of showcases that there's an opportunity here for really mainstream to maybe get their first realization of, hey, this Bitcoin thing is here to stay. Look at all these big guys playing in, just because of the advertising imprint that's going to happen out there. So I would agree with you. I think there's a lot of very interesting factors playing into this cycle. Mark, it's always fun.
The last thing I'll leave you with.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last thing I'll leave you with on this is the digital divide. Right? Our generation, us boomers, are going to leave our kids, give or take 39 trillion, let's round it to $40 trillion with a T. Okay? Not tomorrow, but over the next, call it 30 years, because my wife and I are the last 2 years of the boom. I'm 63, she's 64. I mean, 1963, 1964, I'm 60, she's 59. Okay. So we don't plan on going anywhere for a while, but over the, next, call it 30 to 40 years, that $40 trillion is going to get left to the millennials. The boomers today have about 3% in digital assets. The millennials are closer to 20.
Interesting.
20% of 40 trillion is a lot. So,
that's a lot.
And that number's only going to accrete higher over time because people are going to wake up to this idea that fiat is a stealth tax and digital assets, particularly Bitcoin, are a wealth preservation mechanism.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I think, this sets up for a very interesting market coming up. So, Mark, it's always fun having you on the show because we love to get your insights. And as things start to heat up, especially in January, we'll definitely get you back on to talk more about that because it'll be interesting to see.
Now let's do it right after the King's birthday.
You got to like it. January 8th. And I don't work on January 8th. It's Elvis' birthday. I love that one. All right, Mark, thanks again for stopping in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Happy holidays.
You bet. All right, so you guys are tuned in maybe on the podcast side of things. Jump over here to the YouTube channel, catch the rest of the full experience of PBN. And of course, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in that now. It's a great place to get additional content. We do a couple of podcasts over there that don't come here onto the YouTube channel, so it's great content for you guys. And you can also catch some additional stuff from me. If you guys want to catch me on X, it's @Paul Barron. Catch you next time right here on TechPath.